So what policymakers can do is create a proper course, a structure for rural development or social service and mandate it as a part of their educational pedagogy. They have to go out, see the rural areas and serve there. You don't have to do much. Take them to the rural areas. They themselves understand there is a problem and need. And young generation, as I said, they are very different. This, not millennials, but the Gen Z, because I deal with them. They are all a part of our university. Very open-minded. They are little painful at times. They question too many times, and you have to keep answering them. You can't just hush them like our generations. It's not possible anymore. But it's an investment that you must make in them by answering the questions. But they are very philanthropic in their approach. They may not be religious necessarily. They don't like rituals and orthodox ways of doing things. But they are very, very sensitive to social needs. They feel that they are responsible for the societal problems, and they are environmentally more active. And I think this is the generation that needs to be groomed. Some policy mandation is necessary. Like if there was no CSR of 2%, how many corporates would have come forward and given that? Today it is mandated, so they're doing, and organizations like us are benefiting. Similarly, if social service is mandated all the way from class 1 till their post-graduation, I'm sure it will do a lot good to the country by sensitizing them to the problems of the country. That is the policy ask that I have from the government, and we ourselves have rural development courses designed in our own university, where children go out to the local villages and help the people and solve the problems. So that is already a part of it. So I think that mandation will really help, and corporates should create this employee engagement with social service as the motivation and incentivize them. Who knows, pay them a little extra salary for that day. They will go happily and do the work and come back. So do something for them, and matching program, matching grants, please bring it up. Because employees cannot pay much, they can give a little part of their income, but they feel that is so little that it won't make a difference. So they hesitate from giving even that. But if the corporate backs it saying that you give and I will 1:2 or 1:3, I will do it, they will happily do. And corporates also in the process will be able to engage with the employees better. So these two policy changes can really help.
It's like two things. If you take Chandrayaan, what we have launched, it's like a close to 600 crore to 1,000 crore, where it is going to the moon and trying to do the, all the research on that. But just you have given a statement like close to 400 million people, they're going on the hunger. So which one is on the priority? From the government standpoint as well as a private organization, of course, it's a human life is more important than research, right? So how do you balance, those things, when compared to the other country and then India? Love to hear your thought.
I think we have to have some short-term goals and some long-term goals, like everybody has, even the corporate has. In the short term, we have to allocate some resources, energy, and time to solve some immediate problems which are becoming a crisis. And also have a certain long-term vision where we allocate certain resources, time, and energy to solve long-term problems. So everybody should have this balance of vision. And I think that's where private sector or governments have to solve some short-term immediate problems. Somebody who's going hungry to sleep, what gratitude does he have for the country? And what does he think of those who are eating their stomachfuls and sleeping peacefully? The kind of social unrest that it can create, social polarization that it can lead to. You cannot operate businesses in such an environment then. So you have to solve some short-term problems now by feeding, educating, or protecting them, some social protection mechanism. At the same time, you also have to dedicate some energies towards long-term vision to not make it happen again. So it's a balance that every corporate, every government has to find. So even as an NGO, we also have short-term and long-term goals. So we invest certain resources in short-term problem solving, certain resources in long-term solutions. So that balance has to be found everywhere.
So I have witnessed day before yesterday and yesterday also I visited the Prashanti Niketan at Kodapaka, Siddipet, and I really excited to see how girls are really the interns who studied in this Sadhguru Medical College, and they came back as interns, and their excitement in getting that internship, although they are from the underprivileged families, how they are having the high career goals, and they even a couple of them like Madhuri are the gold medal winners from President G. So I feel that the world is really very unequal to the women in the history, and we need from on the women empowerment perspective, we need a ripple effect of the policies to make this world or the next 5 years or the 10 years in terms of the policies, there should be a ripple effect. It is not on the one maternity policy which gets extended to 6 months. Should be in all the ways the women empowerment policies or everything should be done. I would like to know a couple of
Pranam Sadhguru. This is Dr. Hari Krishna Maram, founder, Global Economic Forum and Vision Digital India. We really appreciate the wonderful work your group of initiatives are doing across the world, not only in India. I keep traveling and meeting a lot of people. So the kind of initiatives were taken in Colombo, Sri Lanka, building a hospital and different places. So I just would like to ask you today, India is overtaken China in population. Today we are at 1.45 billion people. And the greatest advantage what we have, unlike any other country in this world, is our demographic dividend, the youth. So in the next 2 decades, how this youth, the demographic dividend of India, is going to help India to reach to the #1 position what we are talking or we are dreaming?
Demographic dividend is the common word that we have used for decades now. But is it really happening is the question that we have to ask. We have 250 million school-going children in the country. 60 to 80% of them go to government schools. 1 million teachers are missing from the government schooling system. And we are talking about demographic dividends. We have the largest population of malnourished children in the world by numbers. And we are talking about demographic dividends. We have mortality, maternal and child mortality, which is still far, far above the permissible levels as per the WHO. And then we talk about demographic dividends when young mothers are dying and children are stillborn. So we have a long way to cover before we talk about demographic dividend. Demographic dividend does not happen in just few urban pockets. If we want the true demographic dividend of the country, then we have to go to the real problems where there can be a disaster if we don't address those needs now. That's where we need everybody's participation. And demographic dividend will happen only if we make it happen. It won't happen on its own. Demographic disaster can happen on its own. Dividend has to be made to happen. And that needs including rural geographies, going back to my same point, include rural education, rural healthcare, rural nutrition, rural skill building, rural infrastructure. All that is what is going to lead to the demographic dividend. So as I said, if that happens, $5 trillion is a done thing. You will go much beyond that. That's my view.
Yes, I actually see 2 people with mics, so these will be the last 2 questions. One here and...
He has secured a mic for himself.
Yeah, and she has as well, so...
Sadhguru, namaskar.
Namaskar.
And I'm happy to know the initiatives you have taken. And we all know, Narendra Modi ji's declared the next, including this year, 25 is Amrit Kal. And to make it really an Amrit Kal, I think he's trying a lot. What is your, I know you're saying, again, the same point, rural and all, but any other points from you are the way in which the Bharat is progressing? Any say on that? I would like to hear from you.
That's very kind of you to appreciate our work and also ask about what is happening at the leadership level, at the country's leadership level. I think we have got a very visionary leader at this point in time, and that's acknowledged and accepted not just by our country but by the world. And for the global south, definitely he is the leader that people are looking up to. And that's been accepted from public forums by global south leaders. So the vision of Amrit Kal itself is a great vision. Somebody at 75th year of independence says that next 25 years we are going to build a developed nation. It's a great vision. And not just it is about economic development. It's about the development which is inclusive. That is the bigger vision of the Prime Minister, which really I am very happy about. Even when the agricultural, whatever, the startup funding was coming down and things like that, they came up with the Agriculture Accelerator Fund. Immediate interventions, quick interventions. That is the key to this development, and that is what this leadership is able to achieve. Highly efficient system, a very quick decision making. Of course, the results of it takes time to show. You sow a seed today, you don't expect the fruit tomorrow. And we must give chance to the leadership to make it happen over a period of time. And I think some of the very big policy decisions which have been made in the last couple of years are very, very futuristic, very progressive, but unfortunately its results cannot be seen the next day. We can't unduly punish the government for that. We must give them a little more time and tenure to prove themselves right. That needs a little more time, but at the policy level, tremendous policies, from MSME policies to even startup ecosystem policies. The kind of support is coming from the policymakers is amazing. I don't think anywhere in the world you're getting that. Make in India, the kind of incentives, I don't see that happening in most of the parts of the world. And that is the reason why from 470 startups, we are 84 or 83 or whatever thousand startups today. It's only because of the right kind of policies, and that is the biggest contribution of the government. Few asks I have still from the startup point of view. I think they need a little more push, especially when they're market ready. Giving them funding at the beginning just to start the product development is one thing, but testing it out, and when it is what you call, technologically ready for the market, they need another set of funding at that point of time to make it go to the market. And that also is something that policy in startup ecosystem can think about. Seed funding and angel funding is one thing. That's what is happening at that point of time. You are going to VCs, angel investors, they're called angel investors, so you go to them. And then you go to these other funding agencies, but they're very exacting, very demanding. And you know what has happened in the last 3 years? Most of these venture capital funds have come from abroad because the interest rates were low and there was a good opportunity here. Now all that is going back. And what you call as funding winter has taken over. This is the time when policy people have to intervene and make sure their funding is available to startups which are already on their way to the markets. They should not get aborted halfway through because of the lack of funding. And that's where I think the policy must cover the entire spectrum of startup ecosystem, not just give them the initial seed investment to start it off, but they must see to that the product goes to the market. Until then, they should hold the startups. That is one policy change or intervention that I think I expect from the leadership. But we are very fortunate at this point. We have very good leadership, very decisive leadership, and that's what will make all these dreams that we have come true, I feel.
How do you manage your anger? Because us as entrepreneurs, there are so much of mood swings. We need to constantly have that patience, which sometimes we lose, as all of them were talking about various policies. But the first thing comes in is a sanity check for ourselves. How do we manage that in terms of all the mood swings? And how do you personally manage your mood swings and anger?
That's a very personal question. But for the benefit of all like that. See, our anger does not come from our personal failures, because we are here instrumenting God's will. So why should I get angry with myself or anybody who is doing their job purely with absolute selflessness, especially in our organization? Everybody is selfless. You go and check. From the gatekeeper till the chairperson, everybody is working selflessly. They may be getting a salary, but that is not the lookout. They are here to serve this community, and that purpose is there. And everybody is doing their very best. Some people may sometimes fall short, inadvertently, not on purpose. Nobody does it on purpose. So the reason to get angry with them is very little. But I do fake anger at times just to set things a little right. Sometimes you have to raise your voice and do things so just to get people serious about what they're doing. But that's not real anger. Real anger comes when you have ego, that you are the doer and you failed because these people did not support you, and you failed because you missed a step or two, and you start blaming yourselves, you start blaming others. It comes from a lot of doership and ego. But when you're an instrument in the hand of God, these issues are easily handled. So I think first thing that I was telling you, learn to be an instrument of that higher divine power which has chosen you to execute a will of its own, and you are just instrumenting that will. Then your issues with anger and mood swings will come down drastically. And even if it happens, let us say somehow you miss that whole feeling and then you get sucked into this whole anger. See, the thing is that you have to be watching out for the symptoms of it. When you are going on a road, you see a car coming on the opposite direction, you immediately get alerted, you give way so that you don't meet with an accident. Anger is like that, though it comes very swiftly, but you have to keep watching these patterns. And once you can get hold of these patterns in you, that these are the reasons when it triggers of my anger, you are more aware. And next time you are able to handle it better. You may still get angry for all said and done, but this time you are angry by being aware that you are getting angry, and not just getting angry without being aware. Next time you'll be even better at it. You'll start watching, these are the symptoms, and this is the fellow who is definitely going to trigger me off. So better I find another way to go away. I don't want to confront people and test my patience and my anger abilities. That's not required, just avoid. I always tell them, wherever there is a possibility of temptation, just take another route, even if it's longer. Avoid such situations where you have to unnecessarily get into that. But become aware of your weaknesses. Start working on them. Start working by taking time. And when you get angry, first thing you should do is leave the place. Leave the place. Don't try to confront and don't try to, give it back to them. Just leave the place at once. Half of your anger will disappear. Drink a glass of water, sit in a quiet corner and do anything that you like to do so that you take some time to overcome that. Just don't react. That is the thing which you have to manage over.
I am Dr. Kiran. I am from Hyderabad. I head an incubator. I am a teacher. And this is the second edition of ISF that I am attending. I attended the first one too. So I thought this forum is more than a who's who of the Indian startup ecosystem. I also see this as a think tank of the Indian startup ecosystem. And I really liked and I could resonate with the keyword that you used, that compassionate capitalism. Recently at Fab 23 Bhutan, I was actually asking the same question, but this forum is probably more the appropriate forum for our country to ask this question. So my question is, you were talking about social entrepreneurship and trying to give benefit to the beneficiaries who are not able to afford the benefits, the solutions. So is there any way that the ethico-legal, socio-political system that we have can actually allow at some level a community IP system that is led by the government, driven by the government with the support from the think tank, so that we can actually have solutions that don't really look for profit or scaling up? Because the social problems that we have, the social entrepreneurship, I'm sure the people here in the room will vibe with it, they cannot really always build solutions that are scalable. The solutions are very much close to the niche that they target, and there is no profit there. So can we actually build a community IP system of some kind, which can also bring certain economic viability to the social entrepreneurship? I wanted to hear from you because I really love that keyword. Thank you for that. Compassionate capitalism. Thank you, Guruji.
I think we are thinking on those lines. And some of the initiatives like the government took, like social stock exchanges and all that stuff, is towards building a kind of an investment channel for social entrepreneurship. However, it is still at a very nascent stage in India. It's not as evolved as western side of the world, but I think it is coming there. In the future it will happen. Meanwhile, we are also, I think tomorrow Jay Garu knows that we are also launching a forum called Rural Economic Forum. Something on the lines of World Economic Forum, which is going to, it's not just a think tank, but it's also a platform for like-minded people to join hands and support these kind of rural initiatives beyond the demands of profitability and things like that. It's a genuine cause, it needs to be solved, and we want to engage with governments, we want to engage with industry, we want to engage with like-minded NGOs and people's participation, public participation at large. So something like that is in the offing. It will take a few years before this matures and really makes an impact. But yes, your idea is very much in motion at this point in time.
So thank you so much, Swamiji, for this session.
I must have the last word.
Oh, yeah, please.
So thanks to you for having organized this and come and asked the kind of question that will help everybody. And my ask is there from this forum, Nothing comes for free, as they say. No free lunches. But here, of course, it is free. But the idea is, each one of you is capable of impacting so many lives. You have so much of potential within yourselves as an individual and as a corporate or a company that you're launching. Please keep a part of your efforts, energies, and resources for a social cause. It need not be here, it need not be now, but make sure that in a disciplined way, earmark your abilities, your skills, your knowledge, your resources for some social cause or the other, through some organization or the other. Second piece of advice I will give you, you are in business, you are supposed to create profits. Don't get into opening foundations and charities and make a mess of both the business as well as the charity. Your core competence is business, please do it well, do it ethically, do it right, be profitable. Leave the charity to charitable organizations, because there are two different skill sets and you don't mix them both. When you are a big corporate, large corporate, you can afford a huge foundation with a lot of people. It's a different thing, but business mindset should not be applied in charity, and charity mindset should not be applied in businesses. So make sure that you keep these things too clear of each other. I think that is the way to a prosperous society. Do well, all the best to whatever for you to do, whatever you're doing, do it well, do it as an example for everybody else to follow. Leave behind footprints for others also to cross the bridge, cross the chasm. And I think this is a very punya bhumi, this is a very sacred land. And this is my personal experience, that anything that we have thought about here with a pure heart, with pure sentiments, it has always succeeded. And one example is this very startup festival last year in October, when it was launched for the first time. It was in a very nascent infant stage. Jay Garu was himself surprised that how did it happen even in that short while. And today when I see 125 term sheets being signed, and that's a huge encouragement to the startup ecosystem. And I'm sure all this will lead to a lot of good, not just to you at your company and employees, but to the society at large. Let's not forget that part of our responsibility beyond the call of duty, compassion side of the capitalism. Let's keep that as the focus, that as the North Star, that as our guiding principle in every business that you undertake. So I wish you all the very best, and I thank Jay Garu and the entire team, volunteers of ISF. Also, 100 of our university students are volunteering during this event. Most of them have come from rural India. They never knew how to speak in English, they didn't know how to deal with people, but you must be meeting them here and there. Wherever you meet them, shake their hands, pat their backs, and then only you go back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
About the startup ecosystem, subscribe to MyStartupTV.
Welcome to MyStartupTV. I'm MajorSunilShetty. We have the day 2 of India Startup Festival 2023. I have with me Soumya Mukherjee, who's the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Well, that's a big name. If you could start with explaining what it is all about.
Sure. Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll just take a minute before I introduce the office, the background of why this Office of Principal Scientific Advisor and why all of this, and why am I here also. That also will explain, the reason. So, Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor dates back to 1999, with APJ Abdul Kalam being the first scientific advisor of the country before he went on to become the president of the country. And as we know, India has been evolving since the early 2000s. to power economy, right? World power, be it nuclear or renewable energy, be it any sector. India is evolving as a entire innovation ecosystem in the world. So we are at the cusp of how our startups ecosystem can be leveraged for the benefit of social impact, if you call it social investments. All of that can be driven. So Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor was set up primarily to do all pragmatic advice to the Prime Minister in terms of science and technology. Now we are in the leadership of Professor Ajay Sood. Professor Ajay Sood comes from the background of IISc. He is a semiconductor and nanotechnology expert. He is also a Royal Fellow of Physics member and has a successful experiments on Raman resonance effects on pacemaker systems of heart. Then also he is he has a number of patents from UK, US, and then he also chairs the G20 Chief Science Advisors Roundtable, which is global leaders in science and technology, and his office represents multiple scientists and technologies from Indian Academy of Sciences, Indian National Innovation Foundation, Indian Science Foundation, DRDO's, AIMS, Mr. V.K. Saraswat. All of them are a part of the Prime Minister's Science Technology Innovation Advisory Council. And the role of the PMST Act, which is the Innovation Advisory Council, is to drive the 9 national missions. So starting with the IEML, NLP, which is National Language Portal Translation, quantum, biodiversity for human health, bioscience, all of that, right? So, for example, if you see the space policy that has come recently, this is also a backbone of the this Office of Principal Scientific Advisor, and increasingly all the quantum mission, even if you talk about it, is because of this office that has come up, and there are a lot more that can be told about the office. I am representing the Strategy Alliances Division, where we do industry academy engagement process.
So that brings me to a very important question with academics, right? So is there in the policy we are coming up where the scientific mindset, should start at a very early age, isn't it? So is your organization working somewhere towards that, or as a policy?
Sure, of course. See, we have recently come out with a deep tech startup policy. I think if we look at the macro level of any policy that has been successful in its implementation, the major element is that it has to be done in consultation and concurrence with the industry, and in a mode which is adaptable to the economy that the country is going through or will be perceiving. Right, we heard from Mr. Ramcharan also yesterday, who is a mentor and a milestone in his own career with helping a lot of companies and success stories all across for entrepreneurs. So early stage, if we talk about, there is lot of it is debatable, and there is a lot of mixed approaches are there. But I think any entrepreneur or any startup, what is important is that he need to also visualize the failure as far as success. You cannot have anything overnight, right? Today you come across a dream, and tomorrow it's not a startup. It's not any a financial thing or any implication that you have. You just deliver it. It is your dream. You have to pursue like a dream. It's like your baby. So you have to mature it, and you have to have a gestation period for it, and then you have to deliver it. So you need to just think about it, right? Whether it is solving any real life problems or not. Identify the real life problems, and I think there are plenty of institutions and startups, IITs and IISers, all of the institutions, and they have their own R&D setups also, incubators, who are willing to help you in the early stage. So I think overall, this way, I think we are the overarching council. Definitely, we have a lot of things to think about, and we are helping the early stage startups. Also, about 150 startups out of 500 we have set up are early stage, actually. And at some point of time they were just nowhere. They were they were probably working in tandem with the MSMEs of the country, and there is a huge gap that is existing between the startups and MSMEs, because no utilization of MSMEs industry is happening, because MSMEs are at the forefront, and they have all the expertise, but they cannot fund because they have their own set of challenges, right? They need power backups. They need a lot of things which are still detrimental in terms of the policy regulations that needs to be flexible. So I think early stage can always be done, and there are multiple ways that are startup program. So Office of Principal Scientific Advisor also launched a platform. I would not call it a portal. It's just called Manthan. It was launched on 15th August 2022, and which is there to address the gaps that are existing in the and the bottlenecks in the physical world. To remove all these bottlenecks we are in a VUCA world, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, all of that. And we need to have knowledge sharing practices, more of information dissemination knowledge on the platform. So we tried to build the platform, and we have this platform with us now, which was launched 15th August, so that industry, the demand side people, which are the industry, PSUs, the state governments or the central governments, the philanthropic organizations, high net worth individuals, they can all articulate their problem statements or their R&D issues, or CSR problem statements, anything that they want to do it collaboratively, and they have funds for that. So the idea is to have the funding reach the right people instead of funding some proposals which are at random, may have relevance 10 years back or 5 years back, and have not researched, what we call is a translational research, but it has its own course of time. So Manthan gives that builds that gap, fulfills that gap of bridging the industry to the 1 lakh plus startups ecosystem, and the 5,000 plus topmost credible institutions, academic institutions, and the MSMEs, if we talk about NGOs and all of that, who are the implementers. And there are science technology clusters also in different cities, who are they are at the heart and soul of the cities, addressing on focused thematic areas and working with 30-40 research institutions in a mode of with the state lab, state governments, the civil societies, the labs, philanthropy organizations, all of them they are working with. So they have the bandwidth, and they can also take up implementation projects if there is any challenge in funding gaps of CSR. So they can also fulfill that gap for any social enterprise or any startup to take those projects forward in the tribal areas and rural areas. We have multiple examples of projects that we have done so far, and it's an open invitation to all the startups and who have been a part and parcel and have been rewarded or have participated in some way in India Startup Festival to leverage this platform freely, because there is no financial implications, and it's a free, democratic and decentralized platform.
So as a support, what kind of support do you provide to startups?
So as I said, we do not fund any projects directly, or neither do we accept funds, because we are the government of India. And this platform is just a crowdfunded platform for the social benefit, for the social cause. So if I talk about how do we help, I think it is primarily for the industry, the problem statement that the industry is facing, why it is facing, and how it can be solved. There are different ways that it could be solved.
So you help connect the industry.
I help connect industry to the startups, the grassroots innovators, and not only connect, but also the startups can showcase their proposals, their innovations on the platform freely. So that's on the Manthan platform. Yes. So the industry can, or the government can come in and they can handpick proposals. So it's this Manthan platform is a combination of an Amazon or LinkedIn, a Facebook, research combined together.
Where they could provide a service. So finally, what's your thought about the event?
So this is a wonderful platform. I think I've rarely seen these kind of events, because most of the events that we come across are either out of multiple dignitaries from the ministries or the central government's thing. Very few events that have been is like which has focused discussions and live pitches and commitments from the real commitments from the investors and angel investors, equity funders. All of them have been here, and there are international players and foundations also who are taking deep interest in the startups ecosystem of the country. and it is, I think, a brilliant platform. It should go its way for social impact, incubation, invention. Necessity is the mother of invention, and I think if the proper research and with proper data analytics, if startup is progressing, then I think the sky is the limit.
Could you say something about MyStartupTV? We are a dedicated media house for startups exclusively.
Of course, I think you're doing a fabulous job. I have not come across any platform so far, although we have tied up with our science and communication partners as Netflix and Amazon Prime and the Hotstars. But I have not come across. I would like to see you soon on my television screen on my living room. And kudos to you for doing this for the startups.
Manthan, initiated by the Office of PSA, is set to transform India's tech-driven social innovations. This platform enhances collaboration with innovators, promotes R&D in emerging technologies, and underscores the societal benefits of these science-based solutions.
The Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India brings to you India's first multi-stakeholder platform to reach the unreached. Manthan aims to facilitate industry-academia collaborations for CSR and philanthropic funding. The platform is built on key pillars of innovation opportunity exchange, virtual exhibitions, and events. Industries can find academic or startup partners. Government research problems can also be found on the platform. Manthan is also aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and emerging technologies. The science and technology clusters under the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India create strong linkages between multiple academic institutions and industry on focused thematic areas. The platform has illustrious co-funding partners and is supported by leading industries, associations, and institutes. Please register on manthan.gov.in today if you would like to source your implementation or R&D and innovation partners.
Stay informed about the startup ecosystem. Subscribe to MyStartupTV.
My name is Tarun Gulati. I'm the Chairman, President and CEO for Square Watermelon in the UK, but I also happen to be the co-founder and co-chair for the India Startup Festival. I live in London, but I've been a banker all my life. I've been chairman of a bank. I've been CEO for several entities, including UTI, the largest asset management company globally, and sat on some 48 boards. What brings me here is obviously my involvement with the Startup Festival. I've never seen anything like this. I've, as I said, lived all over the world. This is unique. This is not about one day running a startup or a 2-day festival. It's a continuous process around the year. The idea is some startups may need money, some startups need mentorship, some startups need the next stage. How do they go about doing that? So that is the whole idea. And I'm trying to bring my experience, global experience, and try and help startups and scale-ups to go to the next road of their journey and make them all very successful with indeed a societal angle. I do believe that one must give back. So I run several not-for-profit entities, including an award that is very global called the 21st Century Icon Awards, where winners and finalists have come from 44 countries, and media is, with CNBC and others, have shown it in 80+ countries. So you can start small, but your vision has to be big, and if everybody thinks like that, they'll at least reach somewhere. So that's the message I would like to give today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to MyStartupTV.
Welcome to MyStartupTV. I'm MajorSunilShetty. We are at the India Startup Festival 2023. Today is day 2, and we are going to start the proceeding Tarun Singhal, who is the director at Soprasteria. He's also on the board of British Business Group. Also, he's part of the Living Bridge concept, which Prime Minister Modi spoke about, which is connecting India to the global and global to India. So welcome to the show, Tarun.
Thank you, Major. Thank you so much. Delighted to be part of this conversation with you.
Perfect. So, let's start by the whole concept of Living Bridge, which you spoke about, before we started. For the benefit of people out there, who are also like you, there are many of them out there who are connecting India to the world and the world to India. So, yeah.
So when Prime Minister Modi was addressing the massive gathering at the Wembley Stadium in the UK, he coined the term Living Bridge. And it's very simple how every one of us in India can do more with global and vice versa. And that's where it's a bridge while we are able to connect with each other, which also links up with the theme of this ISF 2023, which is connect, collaborate and celebrate. So together we can do more, but individually we can't do more.
Correct.
So namaskar and Sai Ram, and I'm happy to be conversing with you.
You're also moderating a round table today. Do you want to talk about that in your, as a Living Bridge concept and that whole concept of connecting the world and to India?
It's very simple. I was having my conversation with Swamiji yesterday, and we were discussing about the round table because he is personally very keen on this diplomatic roundtable, which I have the honor with his blessings to chair and moderate today along with Seshadri ji. Now, it's all about how as India we can be able to collaborate with the global world. Now let me give you one very small example of how at Soprasteria we are doing it, which I was discussing with Swamiji yesterday. We have presence across 30 countries, north of 55,000 people globally. And when it comes to community, it came out that we are working on one country and few schools in India, whether it is to do with healthcare, whether it is to do with education, and that's the concept we follow. So in simple words, when we were discussing about this, Swamiji said that, why don't you come across and start something like Force 15? And what he meant by Force 15 was, we give at the round table to all the diplomats, whether they're from Finland, they're from UK, they're from Australia, they're from US or United Kingdom or France, where we are actually working very closely as two countries together. One of the concepts which came out from Swamiji on Force 15 was that we give a target of 2 companies per country. So even if 7 to 8 countries subscribe to this concept, together 15 powerful companies, we come and work not on the visibility, because everybody is doing something on visibility. We want to create an impact. Like you saw here, Satya Sai Memorial Hospital. It's an impact. It's affecting so many people's lives, providing free healthcare for many. So I would be revolving around that and try to put that as an agenda as part of the FTAs being signed and take it forward from there.
Coming to your personal mission, what's your mission?
My personal mission is very simple: connect, collaborate, and celebrate. I would give a little bit more value to celebrate, because if you're celebrating and having fun, then you can do anything. Sky is the limit. And that is what is most important. Swamiji mentioned yesterday about $5 trillion economy. वो तो हो ही जाएगा.
Correct.
That is not a problem. The problem is how we can do something better and that mitigation of that. So I want to align my personal goals with the wider society goals. And that is where I am working towards, and that's the reason which brought me here in the ashram today.
So far, we are on the day 2 of the event. What's your take from day 1? What are your thoughts?
I think day 1 was phenomenal. We all saw and witnessed 125 term sheets being signed. It is a world record. People would say startup festivals or startup conferences would be something in small scale, one small boardroom, small discussions. Something like this where you have more than 10,000 people as delegates attending, more than 200 CXOs here, more than almost 100 venture capitalists here. Where else will you find this? Exhibitions area, people are exhibiting beautiful products in the range of education. We saw CII Sure, which is the food and nutrition concept of Satya Sai institution. It's all amazing, and I think highlight for me yesterday were, I would say, two highlights. One was fireside chat with Swamiji, where he mentioned very clearly how the CXOs and organizations can do more and better. And the other was the symphony, Sai Symphony Orchestra.
Good afternoon. This is the most powerful panel of India Startup Festival. And in fact, a lot of discussions yesterday and today morning also. The gender issue, a lot of people were raising why many women leaders are not actually taking their responsibilities and driving new companies. They are all limited to their home responsibilities, children responsibilities. I think time has come for all of you to become not just leaders in India but global leaders. You have to pave the path for the rest of the women folks, because in India I see if you go to any engineering college, 80% of the students, they are all girl students. Recently I went to one orphan school in near Vijayawada. There also 90% are all girl students. So what are they doing? 90% in the schools and colleges, but they are not getting into the industry, they are not getting into leadership, they are not getting into the senior positions in the corporate industry. So there is something lacking. Maybe I will request Radha also to come, because Radha, come, you are the right person, the model woman entrepreneur doing extremely well in Silicon Valley. Please come, Radha. So all of you are role models for women entrepreneurship. You tell us, instead of blaming us that we are not giving the opportunity to you, you tell us why women leadership are not really taking the ownership and responsibilities to go higher up and lead companies. Come, Radha, please come. So we are expecting a white paper recommendations from this round table, so that this we have to implement by the time we go to the next conference. You have to work hard, make sure that yes, there was an issue in ISF 23, but we were able to resolve, and these are the recommendations which are given by ISF 23 round. I am looking forward to the chairman of the that we were able to solve these problems, and that's when we all feel that yes, somebody is working to see that this problem is getting solved instead of blaming all of us. Thank you.
Check. Am I audible? Yes. Am I audible? Well, thank you, Jay Garu, for encouraging us and setting the stage. So, good afternoon, welcome. And of course, we see very less, but I guess all of you are here with an intent to listen to us. So we'll try to get into the crux of the things that Jay Garu mentioned, and all of us here we believe in. So on the stage, can begin to introduce each one of you, but I'm pretty sure that you are here for a very good reason, which is you're all women in business with substance, have gone through many challenges and come to this point of life where you're joining hands on this beautiful stage today to talk about some of the challenges, some of the recommendations, and as Jay Garu said, to set some standards for our next sessions, as well as a lot of the other listeners who are listening to us. So with that, I'll get started. So I guess, some of the things that we have discussed individually or in groups that we do very well when we are in a very set ecosystem. If everything is provided, we do well. But suddenly, when we come out of that ecosystem, we tend to lose the grip or the motivation to go forward. So, why or what are those one or two things that we fail to understand while we are in that ecosystem that puts us in the back seat to deal with the world outside? And an example is that beautiful education system that we have here for women or for girl education. We prepare them to take challenges, have their own mind, but when they come out to start out their careers, that's when we see there's a bit of drop from let's say from 100 girls child to then you'll see 50% of them. So what are the one or two things that we fail to do and which we can address, coming from your recommendations and your experience? So I have set of mics here. So Radha, I see she has raised her hand. So let's hear from Radha.
This is working fast.
Okay, I think now, yeah. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity. I know I wasn't actually part of the panel, but I kind of barged in. I think I could say that of India, girls are expected to do well in school, have their mind, but I think there is a lot of I would say in their upbringing and even societal expectations, conformity. So when you want to be a leader, you can't be conforming to things, and your ability to navigate uncertainty, that has to be cultivated. If you're just going to follow rules, then I don't think you're going to be able to navigate uncertainty or complexity, which are all like essential skills, to be a business leader. So I think that's the first thing. You have to change the expectations at home and outside, and you should not be you should be totally okay with taking, a stand that is not, expected or contrarian, and be okay with it. I think a lot of times they're expected to please everyone, and that's not really going to work. So it's not like, they don't have a mind of their own, but it's just that they don't choose to use their mind of their own because the consequences, are not really, helpful. So that's kind of my perspective.
I completely agree with what Radha said. One is, yes, uncertainty, you should be ready for it. And one of the other things, I think, as women, we always feel that we have to be good at everything. No, we don't have to be. We are multitasking. I know we can multitask, but then you cannot make everybody happy at every time. But it's a conscious call you got to take, whether at this point in time my work needs me, or at this point in time my family needs me, or my friends needs me. What it is a conscious call that you have to take. You cannot be perfect in everything, except that fact that you cannot be perfect. It's about how you maneuver through it and take it forward. And secondly is, don't be afraid of anything. Right? If you have that fear, I think first and foremost, women don't take that step forward because they're scared they will fail. And what happens if you fail? Nothing happens. You fail. That's all. Because once you fail, only you understand the happiness of success. So that's exactly what it is. It's okay to fail. Fail first, fail fast. Then that's when you will succeed soon. It's okay to fail. Don't look for perfection. You cannot make everybody happy. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Rashmi. Sandhya, I think you have wanted to add a few things.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. I think one of the things when we're in the professional world is just to be a professional. To set aside the hat that are you a woman, are you a man, whatever. And that's been my way all the way. And Even when I had started the startup 30 years ago in STP, that was the way it was. And having just come back from the US and having got a contract to work and needing to deliver on it, I knew I had to work late. So I'd send off my driver in the evening and then I'd drive back home late. So my father-in-law complained. He said, no, you can't come back, drive yourself so late. So the compromise was get 2 drivers. They worked in shifts. But I wasn't giving up on working late. And there were times that I needed to do that. And I'm really grateful for the way the family supported me. It's somewhat about ourselves setting the expectations of this is what work means to me, and this is what I need to do, and how can the ecosystem help to make it all happen.
Thank you so much. So listening from 3 of you, I could pick up that there's a lot which is dependent on the woman herself. So totally agree, and I would say on behalf of everyone here that, that first fire in the belly is to be with the women, and all of you who have listened to them would definitely agree, because, you could go to some extent with the support, but after that it's all your journey. That said, I'd like to move to a next set of questions which are basically about the pitfalls and the myths about women-led endeavors. So for example, how easy or how difficult it is to go and pitch something or lead something in a very male-dominated industry. Again, I totally see the point that you have to be a professional first, but that's one the starting point. But beyond that, there are always these myths that after certain age, certain stage of life, you cannot take some roles, or you should not. So some pitfalls and myths that are out there which we have to demystify today, because all of you have gone beyond those and completely taken a new shape. So definitely would like to hear from some of you on what could be those challenges, pitfalls that you have seen in your career so far, which were a little bit different than a usual industry that a woman should usually faces. So Rashida.
Yeah, hi. I think I'll just share a little bit of my story of how I began. So I'm basically a company secretary by profession. I'm a lawyer and born, brought up in Mumbai, got married in Hyderabad. So when I came down to Hyderabad after my marriage, I was having a successful career with corporates in Mumbai. But when I came down to Hyderabad, somehow when I went for an interview, I didn't quite like the atmosphere, and I said that probably that's not the right kind of atmosphere to be in. So I thought, okay, let me just get into practice as a company secretary. And the biggest challenge, there were 3 challenges which I faced. One was, I didn't know anybody in Hyderabad. It was absolutely a new city for me. My family, in the sense my in-laws, my husband, of course, did not have much of networking. There was no, because he was also working, so there was no kind of networking or in the business area. Second was that I came from a minority community, so that was a big challenge for me. And third, it came in as from the point of view that as a woman, right? So all the 3 were against me, and all of them, especially my professional peers, when I met them and I said, look, I want to set up practice. Can you help me at least introduce me to some corporates where I can do practice? And they all discouraged, saying you can't, it's best you go and work in a company, it'll be better. So that sort of, I took that as a challenge and I said, no, I'm going to change this. So there was no woman company secretary in practice. In fact, there was nobody in practice. There were just 2 people who were in practice then. and nobody knew what a company secretary was as such, and what kind of services we could provide. So from there, I began my journey slowly and steadily, facing all odds. I mean, it was extremely difficult. First 2.5 years, 3 years were extremely, extremely difficult. A lot of discouragement, a lot of negativity. But then, if you have decided that, okay, you want to do it, I think you can do it. It just needs that guts. You have to have that, and a never give up attitude and a belief in yourself that you can do it. So I think this is what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashida. I'd like to hear from Pooja. Can you hear me? No.
Well, I would start off by saying, if at least in the limited exposure, global exposure that I have, if a man has to prove 100%, I've always seen female founders or women needs to prove 150%, and coming from the Gulf region where it is a male-dominated society, culturally, if a man is considered the head of the family in India, in the Gulf, into 100x. Yeah, but so you should always have the heart for people to discourage you in all ways. So when I was my entrepreneur the first time, I remember my investor asking very weird questions as to what about if you get married, what about this, what about that. But by the end of the day, he got an exit even before my marriage, or I'm not even married. So it was like, he was basing something on a personal event in my life, but it would not necessarily be that. And then also, so even today, I have 3 male partners. One is a local UAE Emirati, one is a Jordanian national, one is a Lebanese national. So it's a challenge by itself to navigate through it. It's a challenge by itself to have a complete board and advisory board of all men. And then sometimes you need to put your foot down and say, no, this is what I'm trying to say. And there are times when I've taken a few leadership calls, they've called it emotional, but then whereas when the other counterpart takes it, it's logical, right? But then I always have the reasoning as to why do you find it emotional when I've written an email, I've done all of the Tarada steps, which ideally would have been accepted. But it's just that core belief of believing in yourself. If 99 people are not going to believe in you, there's going to be that one person who's going to believe in you. But then you, of course, cannot wait for all of you to believe, but it's about you know that you can make it happen and you work towards it. And that's what leads to success. So.
Well said. And I heard that story before, and I was so intrigued that, we have a very limited view about the myths or some of the images of our society within our window, and we rarely get to see the perspectives from a different country, different culture, different regions. And just to know or be aware of those will help us to build our confidence, because we think that what we have is not good enough. But in some cases, all the women should know this, that whatever they have today is good enough for them to take that first step. Because someone else somewhere in other regions probably are not having even that minimal thing that you need to go forward. So this was the very insightful personality that I came to know when I spoke to you. So thank you for sharing that. So I'd like to ask the same to Manisha, because one of the interesting point is she started after a good career break, but then she's now the president for HYSIA in Hyderabad, and has a very great working career. So that myth as well, that there can be a good work-life balance. Is it a myth or a reality? Something that if you could share some of your views.
I think work-life balance is unnecessarily overhyped, is my view. Yeah, we need to manage both, but it's just about prioritizing and not beating yourself up in case you are little less in one of the way I put it is that that is superwoman syndrome which we have. The women have this superwoman syndrome where they want to be the best and the perfect in everything they do. I would like to say that be the best and the perfect in the things which are important for what you want to achieve in life, and the other things you do so that they're managed well. That's the myth of work-life balance that I have come across. I remember hearing similar thoughts from Radha once, where Radha also mentioned about the work-life balance, saying whatever you are doing on the priority, decide on the priority and do that well. So.
Well, thank you. Couldn't agree more.
And I heard from her about having 2 drivers and maid. So take support, have support system. You don't have to be the superwoman driving and doing everything. Take as much as, and I'm glad that your father-in-law told you that.
I completely agree with you. It's all about not just prioritizing, but becoming well at organizing yourself, organizing the system around you, and the help is there. I don't think that there are too many barriers. I was in Middle East as well, managing director for 100 countries, and I raised a son who's turned out to be a balanced individual, and yes, it's all possible, and absolutely, you should know when to go home and do what you need to do and work around it and make sure that your whole I wouldn't use the word balance, but you're prioritizing things at the right time for what is required. So from that perspective, it never affected me. I would say no. Having a career of 25 years and no major issues there. And especially in the Middle East, I completely agree. It's interesting, it resonates with me so much when you said professional first, because I've worked with a whole range of nationalities and 100 countries, and when you're the professional first, whether you're male or female doesn't come into the equation at all. It really doesn't, and you bring value to the table, and that is appreciated. That's what matters. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. So on that note, right, I'd like to actually pivot to the future, because all of us have different backgrounds or education, qualifications, experiences that have, and all of us don't do the same thing. So diversity is good just on this table or on this dais. But to, put that into the next generations in the educational systems, since you have a, good insight about how we can do so that we have quality. It's not just about the quantity, because most of the statistics say that, the girls will get gold medals and so forth, but they're not turning into leadership roles 10, 20 years later. So somewhere there is I won't say a gap, but there's a reason which I believe that we can actually fix it when they are getting into their educational system. So what differently do you think or do you suggest? Because Jay Garu said we also have to suggest, and this is one of the places where we can do something. So we have lots of other consortiums that are out there which are going to be looking at the curriculums for, let's say, a domain, but I think this is a very important domain, because just from a India population, 50% are women and many are millennials or very young population. So what would you recommend after seeing the experience that you have that can groom the next women leaders?
I think I will just talk about Sadhguru's philosophy and how it's worked here. First thing he teaches very well is to bring out the best in each individual. So there's no stereotyping, I want you to become a doctor and an engineer or whatever. He really focuses on understanding at the teacher level what the skills of that particular student is. The second thing he does is builds a lot of confidence in them, to the extent where if you speak to our students, our undergraduates and postgraduates, they have a total clarity of purpose. So they're not swayed by others, by the community. They know where they want to go. And I've been in part of many of these functions where their clarity of purpose is tested. and they know where they want to go. So I think that instilling that in the generation of girls coming up is very important. Once they have clarity of purpose, they have the confidence. Confidence is about exposure as well. So they get a lot of exposure to all kinds of different backgrounds of people, situations and everything. And the third thing that is again instilled at a very early age is stability of the mind. Again, that comes with clarity of purpose as well. So once you have that clarity of purpose, things don't shake you as much as they would normally. So those are the three, I would say, big success factors where our girls, if you look at the postgraduates, at the age of 21, 22, they can run a whole campus. They can do everything from cooking in the campus to, teaching, to, teaching them, Vedam or Sanskrit or whatever. Very confident. And that's because they've been raised that way. And, one of the messages is anybody with a daughter out there, give them those kind of exposures. Thank you.
Thank you, well said. Your views?
Yeah. I would like to add one more to that. So I would request girls to have that self-confidence and self-respect for their own self, because during the school or college we see that girls being in the toppers list and they get through the jobs, and eventually after a period of time, definitely at the age of marriage and childbearing ages, they tend to give priority to the family and wanted to leave the career, right? So obviously there are a lot of ways of having inclusive spaces for work or giving work from home for a certain duration. But more than that, it should be from within that I want to do this, I want to have, I can take help and I can do a bit more. Probably it will be for certain duration, but that self-motivation during that time, it's a very brief time, probably 5-6 years, but during that time it will be very helpful in a long run. Right? So just leaving career in 5-6 years and again trying to cope up is a very difficult step. Instead of that, having take support, and also companies also equally support in these kind of scenarios. So I think being self-motivated and not losing interest of own self should be the priority at those prime age to be at the senior level eventually, instead of restarting the career from the beginning.
So that's it, right? The segue to that is the role of a mentor or the role of a guru. So unless you are X number of years in your experience, you don't get into leadership trainings. That's what I've experienced 80% of the time. And then it goes back to that individual to absorb, because everything is given to all. It depends on that individual. So whatever I'm hearing right now it's a lot to do with that particular person and the self-motivation. But as an education system or as a corporate or in industry, society, I'm not even going to touch because that's a big far away from us. But the sphere of influence that we have, what is that one thing that we, at least the women here, can do? And I want to go one by one, because those will be some things that are coming back from your experiences and have worked. And I'm not talking about the person yourself, I'm talking about something which has happened outside of you, which has helped you, because that could be a reason for somebody to say, yes, I can do that to support another person who's sitting next to me or in my family or in my society. So I'd like to hear from each of you. What is that one or two things that we can do here that will motivate that person?
Very good afternoon, everybody. And sorry I got a little late, but that's a great question. The one or two things that we can do to motivate the students, or as young children, I think most of us here agree with me that when we went to school, our primary focus was only education, until we came of an age where probably that's when they started saying that, okay, now you have to get married, you have to learn cooking, or you have to now start looking at things other than education. But it's little different for the men, who continue to do their best in their professional life. But my view is, I think when the child is young, each of us should try to inculcate that holistic experience or influence on them where they understand their higher purpose. Like ma'am just mentioned, that they have to understand their purpose and then work around that. So if we can inculcate that sort of a purpose within the students or children at a younger age, they will understand that it's not only about education, only profession or only family. It is everything, right? It's an amalgamation of both. So we should be in a position to have that mindset where we can take ourselves forward in that direction.
So that's for the parents and the teachers, whoever are there, we have an option or a way to tell them that to have a purpose in the life. Right. Thank you. Radha?
I'm actually the exec sponsor for empowering women in my company. I was both in YouTube as well when I was working in YouTube. I think one of the main things is in a lot of powerful positions that really matter, it's mostly men. So I think more than just mentoring and coaching women, which has to happen, and I think we need to bring in more men so that they can be a better allies and they can actually support, so it should not be just a dialogue between women, because it has to be a dialogue between people who have the power to change things. And I just want to illustrate with an example. So, I have this meeting with my CEO, Steerco, and it was like a heated debate between a couple of execs, and I was trying to get my point in, and he was like, he stopped the conversation and he said like, hey, Radha is trying to say something. Let her say it, right? So I think it's about men in powerful positions. They just need to, understand what is their role, how they can be, better supporters, of women, and we can't just expect them to just learn it on their own. So I think there is a lot of coaching that we need to do. So one of the things I'm trying to do is just set up meetings with all the senior leadership team members. Like, hey, here is my agenda as an exec sponsor for the women's group, and this is what I'm expecting from you. And this should, actually help them be a better leaders. It's not like, they're just doing anyone any favor. I think just creating a more inclusive organization will make them a better leader. And once they get it, I think a lot of them will actually, it's just that they don't know how to go about it.
So another way to say is he for she. I guess we had heard this term sometime, but the he for she is something that we can take up as one of the recommendations to formalize it in spaces where we can, and look for folks who actually can do that better than us. So thank you, Radha. Rashmi?
Give them a few tangible things. Give them a few tangible things to do, so that they don't have to think about it.
Absolutely. Rashmi?
I think most of the points, I don't know, because you're sitting next to me, I'm concurring with every point that she's saying. But however, I think one of the things that I also feel is, why do we women need empowerment? We are already empowered. We don't need additional, right? So just treat us as equal, except yes, physically, here and there, yes, there are pluses and minuses, but mentally, technically, skillfully, we are all equal. Just go with that and go with the flow. But I think what also is a problem is, as women, we want everybody to accept us, right? It's okay. Some people will not accept us. It's fine. We cannot, again, I'll go back to the same thing. You cannot satisfy everybody. If somebody doesn't accept you, it's fine. Move on. One of the brilliant decision-making process, or one of the brilliant aids that we have, is we can make a choice. If you feel that atmosphere is not conducive, if that team or the people around you are not adding to your growth or progress, are not being a positive influence to you, it's okay. Just choose not to be there. Make a choice. You have an option. It's not the end of the world. That's what I feel.
So let me sum it up, Rashmi. I guess a very famous author, Carol Dweck, she writes about this on being mindful, and then one of the ways that she explains about the ranking system that we have from 1 to 5, and that means that there is 1 is like a fail, but in their terminology, it's more about not there yet. rather than always trying to get that, flying colors. So I guess what you're saying is, in our heads we have this aspect of expectation from ourselves that we have to be having that 5 all the time, but I guess we can keep telling us that, we are not there yet, but we'll still keep trying.
Yeah, we are work in progress.
We are work in progress. Well
and
said.
Why ask for equality? We are all equal. We don't have to ask for something that we already have.
Yeah. Thank you, Pooja.
It's so nice to hear wonderful thoughts from people. So for me, for the young leaders, I think, as Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful tool that you can use to change the world. So I think education is the key for us to see a lot of women leaders or women to, be on boards, be it anyone, right? So I think that is something I stand for. And today, what I am today is also to my alma mater of all the institutions that I've been in, and how they've shaped me to take the bold step to stand against the odds and to stand for who I believe in and for my purpose. So I think education is the key. So I would start with the younger leaders. We should, as Sri Sadhguru said even yesterday, we should just work towards the percentage of education going higher in women, and we all should be that supporting force for that. And by doing that, we are, winning.
So I guess what I'm hearing is we all have to go back to our colleges and spend some time with our next batches and give away, and maybe, partner with organizations which are already doing. And that's one of the ways where we can, give back, not just, spiritually, but also on paper. So something that you should all sign today, saying that you will go back with, an understanding that you will probably teach one student or maybe a bunch of students from your college. Yeah, each one teach one. I think we have the there's a homework to do. So, Sandhya Garu.
Yeah, I'd just like to put a little bit of a different spin on the whole thing. I don't know why we think women in India are not doing their bit. I think they're doing great. Just look at this awesome panel sitting right here. Look at all the awesome presentations and people pitching right there. They're just doing just absolutely great. And when I think about when I went to college, I was one of 2 girls in the whole class across the universities. And I did happen to get the gold medal, and that didn't work against me, so Praveena, so there. And the point is that even in the US, there is a lot of things being said about girls not being able to take to STEM education and so on. Whereas when you look at India, STEM education is doing brilliantly. More than 50% in all the colleges are women, and they're doing great. So the only little gap, if there is one to be filled, is that you are doing great, just keep doing great, believe in yourself, empower yourself, and keep being persistent, and don't look at obstacles as obstacles, but as opportunities and problems to solve, to keep moving forward. And that just changes the whole dynamic. And having worked 20 plus years in industry, and in the last 15 wearing kind of an academic hat with having a lab in IIIT where I was doing teacher training for teachers in engineering colleges, helping them to bridge the gap for students. This has been part of my yajna, so to speak, and I have found incredible change as the teachers and the heads of the department and women have empowered themselves. Those that used to not sit in the center table, who would sit outside, not speak their mind, I have seen them as we have encouraged them to, you have brilliant ideas, go ahead, speak up, just say it, what's going to happen. And from there to see that sea change, and seeing these professors now leading women in engineering sections, IEEE women sections, and getting best professor awards and all that is just incredible. So I think that's one aspect. The other aspect is that children are natural managers. I remember my 5-year-old waiting for me to come back from work and said, "Amma, I have a chart to do. Can you help me with that?" This was many years ago, of course. And I said, "Okay, what do we need to do?" And she described the whole thing. And I said, "Okay, let's do it." She said, "Okay, here are the colors. Here's the chart paper. You draw so beautifully, Amma, start." I said, "Okay." And then she literally made me do the whole project. I said, "If I'm doing the whole thing, why don't you go to bed? It's late." Said, no, I'm going to sit here. And she was, quote unquote, managing me. And after I was all done, she drew the borders, wrote her name and class, and rolled it up, put a rubber band, put it on the side, and said, "Now you can go to bed, Amma." So, a lot of our education tends to put one size fits all to everybody, and that's the problem. So we need to fix our education system so that we allow the natural interests of people, whether they be boys or girls, to prevail and not bucket them into engineers, doctors, and one more other. And I think that I'm already seeing in this last 15 years, and I feel very grateful to be in that space right now and having mentored many people. That's what inspires me to keep going. And I think there's great opportunity for more people to just help in mentoring, sharing your knowledge, sharing some pitfalls, which will help someone else to just move out and be more of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, I'll go back to the homework that we have to do. So 2 things I heard. One is also talk about the things that are working well. The aspect of the STEM education in schools, specifically for the girls and how they do it. We say we communicate a lot, but I don't think we are communicating in the right places. So one of the aspects is how much and to what extent we should talk about the successes as well as the places that all of us have come to. So one statistics I'll give you is that this is the largest ever roundtable I have ever conducted, because we've always had very few women in leadership. So this itself is one good picture that I'm going to carry for some time, because this represents a very that many number of years of experience.
I was thinking that it's the first time that I'm not the only lady in the panel.
Yeah, so I guess this is something that we should celebrate. It's not just happening, just like that. I really want to take this opportunity to say thank you that we are part of this round table here. So that's the first one. The second one is also about, the manager in you or a certain skill that you may have, which we have to identify early on. And that would go to, someone sitting in that position. But again, we all have those leadership roles in our own organization. So maybe, come up with a way or program, something that if it's already existing with one of you, you can share with us so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But there's a space that is required for nurturing that skill, which is very raw, early on. So that would be something that's my second takeaway. Maitri?
One more point I would like to add. So we usually tend to give away the credit to the people, to the family or the spouse or the support system that we have. And we take very less credit of our own work, right? And I think we need to start talking about our accomplishments as well and create more role models in this space so that we look up to someone else who have much more accomplished, but and also the next generation to see us as the role models. So we need to set up those kind of examples with our stories and also tell that what was our journey and also what we have done to reach there, both good and bad odds, everything. But we need to create more and more role models and takes up I can have a mentor for myself, and I can mentor someone else who is younger than me. So this kind of system, I think, will help in making more girls and women achieve what they want to do.
So connecting to that, I feel that we are very bad at marketing ourselves, starting from writing a resume or a profile document. So maybe the other thing that I'll probably propose as part of the white paper is that we do have to first teach how to speak about your own accomplishments in your own words and go completely unbiased about yourself. So maybe a training which is already available with someone can sponsor that and say that we will teach all of them at a very young age about how, making them comfortable to speak about themselves. So Manisha, you spoke about, only women there, most of the time in the, forums, but something that you would like to give away as a suggestion that we all can incorporate going forward.
See, I'll borrow from Michelle Obama's words. She said, have gigantic dreams. I think that is the starting point. Many times we're just happy, okay, we're doing job. That's big enough, because even that is not so easy for a woman. So, or we're starting a business. They're saying, I'm doing business, I'm earning good enough, right? But they'll not think about having franchisee and going global. So that gigantic dreams is the starting point. And the other thing which I observed is asking for help. There was a Harvard study which was done, and when they gave a task to be done which couldn't be done by one person, and they gave it to the group to do, 85% of the men quickly asked for help to the others because they understood I can't do it. But only 20% of the women in that group hesitant to take help. While
informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to MyStartupTV.
Products and services, and also most importantly their experiences with use cases, how to adopt digital transformation amongst all the MSMEs. We are already talking of I 5.0, and you all would be wondering, we have not yet been done with I 4.0, and 5.0 is being mentioned in most circles here. We heard in the morning session a great deal about sustainability. So all that is happening is we are trying to integrate I 4.0 with making it more human-centric and making sure the man and machine coexist, and sustainability as the other aspect. So it's an integration of I 4.0 and I 5.0. So I don't want to steal the thunder from our speakers here. We have Mr. Tushar from Mahindras and Mahindras. We have Atom State represented by Mr. Venkat, who's going to talk about AI and ML applications and how to implement them in our businesses. And we have Karthik from CADFEM, which is a global partner company for ANSYS. Some of you would be using ANSYS software. ANSYS also has been on the forefront of startups funding. We're going to hear all about this. Over to Mr. Tushar to tell us all about digital transformation and to what extent M&M has benefited by providing end-to-end solutions. Over to you, Tushar. Thank you.
So, good morning friends, colleagues and seniors. It's my pleasure to be presenting in MSME Summit organized by CII. Before I move to my presentation, first of all I will like to thanks to entire CII team for providing this platform to all the industries where we can share our knowledge our initiatives or practices which can be helpful and mutually benefited to all the industry. Two case studies which will be benefiting other industries that we are focusing. Perhaps we are the one and only who are manufacturing two-wheeler and 20-wheeler, both the things under auto and farm divisions. This is our global footprint. We are present in multiple countries. Our R&D centers are there in multiple countries and also manufacturing. This is our product portfolio at Hyderabad plant in Telangana specifically. So we have recently launched 2 new products in auto also and farm also. Both are our techno-savvy products. One is EV related commercial vehicle, and then our all new take pack ready tractor, which are going to be launched, which are launched at global platforms, and that will be having many new features introduced first time in the tractor industry. So these are different 7 models which are introduced through OJA, that has been recently launched on 15th of August. Focusing on to our journey as a Mahindra and Auto Farm sector, this is our journey toward digitization. So we have started with our strategy and our program formation since 2016-17, and this is the way we have moved ahead. So we have focused on multiple themes like IoT, robotics, digital operations, which will be coming forward into this presentation. All this has been integrated in our own customized MES platform, which are called as Drona. So why technology? So these are the challenges which industry is facing nowadays. So increasing model complexity, improve competitiveness in the market. To survive in the market, we have to improve all these parameters. We have to go through this complexity of the models and yet maintain our margins. So for doing that, we have adopted the different approach. We have simplicity, customer centricity, process robustness, flexibility. These are we have adopted into our approach, and working on these initiatives, we have formed our case studies, which we are going to showcase with you. So these are the major themes: low cost automation, digitized operations, IoT, and new technologies. I will skip this slide because this is going to be covered in future. Okay, in low cost automation, we are going to present a few case studies. So this is our main drive, no fault forward. So whatever we are manufacturing on the particular station, that has to be first time right, and there should not be any fault going forward to the inspection. So based on that things, we have showcased few of the case studies. This is our one of the case studies in which we have addressed near about 400 plus failure modes, and from those failure modes we have categorized them into 4 different buckets in our assembly operations, like torquing, part missing, wrong assembly, similar looking part. These are the areas which need to be addressed for covering major failures in our processes. So these areas we have addressed through basically we are having both legacy of operations. There are old plants which are running on the manual operation. So we have gone for the requirement based, need based